The surprising part is not that AI can write a decent research summary. The surprise is what actually blocks scientific copilots from earning real authority. It is not intelligence, it is reproducibility, governance, and the ability to prove what happened. A research copilot sounds simple on paper. You ask a question, it reads papers, it drafts code, it proposes experiments. In practice, that same system is touching the most fragile parts of science. It touches messy data, half-reported methods, and results that may not replicate. When it fails, it often fails politely, with confidence and good grammar. So the first high-impact finding is a reality check. General-purpose language models already help with drafting, synthesis, and tool-like workflows. Code-oriented models can scaffold analysis scripts and tests. Yet reliability and hallucination remain unresolved constraints. The gap is widest exactly where strategy leaders care most, where outputs become decisions, funding, or filings. A useful way to think about progress is to separate fluency from execution. Many models can talk through a method or outline a plan in minutes. What they cannot consistently do, yet, is produce a workflow you can rerun later, unchanged, and trust. Scientific work is not just the final answer. It is the data cleaning choices, the versions of libraries, the prompts that shaped retrieval, and the human edits that fixed subtle errors. That leads to the second major finding. The central enabling technology for scientific copilots is not a new model. It is provenance-first infrastructure. If you cannot trace a result end-to-end, you cannot safely scale the copilot. Provenance means capturing the model identity and version, the prompts, the retrieved sources, the tool calls, the datasets, the code, and the execution environment. It also means recording human approvals, instrument settings, and any post-hoc edits. Without that record, speed becomes a trap. A team can generate more analyses, more plots, more claims, and still be moving backward. Reproducibility quietly degrades, while the interface feels more productive than ever. Leaders should internalize one hard gate. If an AI-assisted analysis cannot be reproduced from logs, it should not inform high-stakes decisions. A third finding is that the biggest near-term wins come from orchestration, not replacement. Specialist scientific models can be extremely powerful in their own domain, and protein structure prediction is the clearest example. In 2021, major advances showed accurate prediction of protein structures and interactions using neural networks. Practical server workflows also made structure inference routine for many researchers. These models changed the computational prior in biology, meaning teams could rank hypotheses before spending wet lab time. The copilot's job is not to pretend the wet lab disappeared. The job is to route between tools, preserve uncertainty, and make validation explicit. A good copilot might call a protein model, summarize the output, propose candidate mechanisms, and then draft a wet lab protocol that tests the narrowest, most decision-relevant claim. The model can accelerate triage. It does not eliminate the need for downstream measurement. A fourth finding is where things start to feel like science fiction, but with real engineering underneath. Early designs for multimodal AI copilots in self-driving electrochemical laboratories sketch a path from document copilots to closed-loop science. In that loop, the model proposes an experiment, the lab executes through instruments, measurements stream back, and the model updates its plan. Even in narrow domains, that is a qualitative shift. The bottlenecks become instrument control, safe delegation, and robust objectives, not whether the model can write a paragraph. Closed-loop control introduces a new class of failure. The system can optimize the wrong objective, overfit to measurement artifacts, or consume scarce lab capacity, chasing noise. So a credible architecture requires safety interlocks, experimental budget limits, anomaly detection, abort thresholds, and human review. Authority has to be designed, not assumed. A model can be creative and still be dangerous if it can act. Now zoom out to the governance boundary, because it is already visible in healthcare-adjacent deployments. High-stakes assistance demands bounded authority, auditability, human review, and explicit accountability. Those requirements are not moral preferences, they are operational necessities when errors can harm people, waste capital, or lock in false conclusions. The lesson for research organizations is straightforward. You must distinguish suggestion from execution and execution from approval. If the interface blurs those lines, convenience will turn a tool into a decision maker. That is how authority creep happens. People stop checking outputs. not because they are careless, but because the system is always there, always fluent, and usually helpful. Another finding that matters for long-horizon planning is evaluation and how incomplete it still is. Benchmarks can measure pieces of capability, like coding tasks or question answering. They do not measure full scientific workflows. Real workflows include data hygiene, domain assumptions, method selection, statistical interpretation, and replication. A model can pass a code benchmark and still produce a scientifically invalid analysis pipeline. So evaluation has to move up a level. Organizations will need tests that resemble their real work. Did the Copilot produce an analysis that survives independent review? Does the suggested experiment improve expected information gain or just produce easy-to-measure outputs? Those are the metrics that matter because they tie directly to lab throughput and capital allocation. There is also a workforce effect that senior leaders should not ignore. Copilots change how expertise forms. Education research already flags risks of cognitive dependence, assessment integrity issues, and skill atrophy. In labs, the analogous risk is that junior scientists become faster at executing workflows while practicing less experimental judgment. Over time, that can hollow out the human capacity that governance relies on, the ability to challenge results and notice when a method feels wrong. A practical response is to treat copilots like you would treat any powerful productivity layer. You do not just deploy it, you redesign the workflow around it, and you decide what must remain a human skill. You also budget for replication. If automation creates spare capacity, a portion should be reserved for validation and audit, not converted entirely into higher claim volume. Looking across time horizons, the near term, from 2026 to 2050, is about reliable institutional copilots and narrow closed-loop laboratories. Human sign-off remains central for high-stakes actions. The mid-horizon, from 2050 to 2100, is where institutional discovery platforms could run thousands of bounded experimental loops in parallel, integrating simulation, robotic labs, and audit systems. Further out, the limiting factor becomes trust infrastructure, not idea generation. Long-lived discovery systems will be constrained by continuity of records, governance, and access to physical measurement. So what should a strategy or capital allocation leader do with all of this? Right now, fund the boring parts first. Invest in data lineage, electronic lab notebooks, code repositories, environment capture, model version tracking, prompt logging, and audit exports. Build hybrid teams that include domain scientists, research software engineers, data stewards, and governance owners. Require bounded authority and auditability in procurement. Define risk tiers, because not all actions carry the same downside. Remember the simplest diagnostic. If you cannot name the accountable owner for a copilot-generated result, keep the system at assistant level. In scientific discovery, the future belongs to the teams who can prove end-to-end how they know what they claim.